So our job has been to help you put in place the thinking, the practices, the processes that enable you to consistently reinvent yourselves on the run so that you can be the ones who design the future and not be at the effect of it like everybody else is. Itron's been engaged in a very robust process. We started off laying down what we call universal performance principles, which is the foundation for everything that we do. So everybody got the work on accountability, integrity, honesty, trust, etc. And then we began to build. Right? Once we get that, then we can move. So they started off with the basics about coordination. So we call what we call the dance of coordination. So they learned how to make requests. They learned how to make offers, promises, and then we cobbled that together into what we saw as the action cycle. That then became, how do you cobble action cycles together into projects? So what did we learn about designing and managing projects? We taught them a whole process for doing project reviews. We then introduced a new set of practices for having meetings, the bane of all businesses everywhere. So we learned how to get meetings together that actually people like to go to, they produce results, they're happy to go to. Then we began to work on a little broader work, all right? So now that you can effectively coordinate with each other, let's learn how we put together teams. Well, what does it take to put together teams? We have to have practices for building trust. We have to know how to declare a vision and a mission. We have to set down standards for how we're going to interact and measure our success. Then we can look at the phenomenon of managing moods. Right? From there, we can begin to look at bigger stuff in the organization. So how do you design a strategy? How do you get ownership for that strategy throughout the organization? What does it really take to generate innovation? And lastly, we're going to look at the whole phenomenon of leadership. What does that not only mean, but more importantly, how do you do it? And you put all that together, and the folks that come out the other end of this, you wouldn't recognize them from the same people that started 9 months ago. At the individual level, a whole series of changes have taken place. Right? We lay down universal performance principles, and they just grabbed onto them. So you've got people who are much more willing to be accountable for everything. They're making clear choices. They're making commitments that mean something. Right? There's a much higher level of trust, and we've really brought meaning to this term about integrity throughout the organization. And people have gotten much more rigorous with themselves and each other in all these things. Then on top of that, then you start building the new competencies. So they've become more effective as team leaders. They've become more effective as communicators, as coordinators. And you're watching, I think, we're not going to claim direct credit for this, but there's been some pretty robust results in terms of selling out in the marketplace.
It was clear from the beginning that people were really taking HP2 seriously and getting a lot out of it. I was getting emails from all over the world, and people would stop me in the hall and thank me for the opportunity to be part of this exciting transformation. It was very gratifying to see the high level of enthusiasm, and it was nice to know that we were doing the right thing.
Workforce today are what we call coordination workers. Right? They're educated, they're agile, they're mobile, they're problem solvers, they're innovators. They're not working out of survival like the early industrial era folks were. They generate value not by making things, but by their effective coordinations with each other to satisfy customers, which in turn produces value for the enterprise. These people require a completely different way of being interacted with, and it's what we call commitment-based management. And the fundamental of it is very simple. What's a commitment? I promise to do X by time Y. On the face of it, it couldn't be simpler, and yet every day we find people don't know how to manage those things rigorously. So what we've done is create a whole methodology around that basic little building block that scales all the way down to an interaction between me and you, and all the way up to a corporate strategy. And when you learn the practices and how to see the world that way, everything changes. Because suddenly now, I'm not a manager of activities, I'm a manager of commitments. And that's a very different way of being. The two-step. They love it, they hate it, all at the same time. The two-step is a very simple little somatic movement, right, which when you look at it, it doesn't look like any big thing. And when you do it, And if you do it well, you begin to realize that this is one simple movement where literally every muscle in your body gets activated, that simple little pivot maneuver. And the reason that we do it is A, because it's simple, and at the same time it's infinitely complex. And if you can discipline yourself to keep your attention inward and begin to notice what muscles are working, which ones aren't, where's my balance, where's my weight, where's my breath, you can spend decades trying to hit the perfect two-step and never do it. And that's the challenge, is can you discipline yourself to simply have the practice of doing it just for the sake of doing it. Why have we done Randori? Well, mostly it's fun to watch, but there is nothing that we've found that simulates life better, more effectively than Randori. There is always, always something coming at you. So that's the real day-to-day life that we all live. There's phone calls, there's meetings, there's customers, there's people in the organization. There's always some incoming. And the question is not, how do I stop that? You don't want to stop it. It's how do I learn to deal with it from center, being graceful, being effective. And Randori is the ultimate practice in which you learn how to do that. Yeah, the program did have a very special close. And as you saw in being there, the intent here was real simple. We've been working for 9 months on building management practices, on building leadership practices, expanding who these people are to be more effective in the business world. And we don't ever want to let them lose touch of the underlying humanity that's involved in all this. So the last little event was all about reminding them about that. And all you have to do is look at their faces to know that it didn't take much reminding.